Hey, this is Stephen Platinum, your friend in wrestling with Platinum versus Dynamite from November 4th, 2020. Right off the rip, let me say a couple of things. This may be the best go-home show that I can remember in years. Obviously, they're all about Full Gear this Saturday, an actual pay-per-view where people are going to have to pay real money. And this show was very much about that. They're not going to be able to have the Scorpio Sky match because of COVID related whatever. That was supposed to happen on this show. And the replacement match was Private Party against the Bucks. I mean, come on, right? That's a make good if I've ever heard of a make good. And the card is phenomenal. They even did a great job on multiple occasions on this show promoting in some way, enticing people with Orange Cassidy against John Silver, for crying out loud. And then the buy-in match went from a match that should have been on the main card. Now that match is on the main card. And then having an NWA women's title match for the buy-in. Very shrewd, very smart, keeps that relationship going, etc., etc. Another thing that AEW has improved on greatly is sort of cross-promoting their other shows. So there is a show that's just a straight-up infomercial for Full Gear, and it's happening on Friday at 11 at night. Now, you might go, like, that's not a prime spot. You're right. But before, they would have never mentioned anything about anything. And now they are, and it's nice. And, of course, they had the AEW Dark results during one of the matches. It was a much improved show from last week, which I thought was not a very good show. And they sort of suffer the consequences in a direct fashion, ratings-wise. So this show opens. Now, a thing that AEW Dynamite does that I like is they always have a match and they always have stuff going on before they take their first commercial break. And this was no exception. This time they open with Jericho, Hager, and Santana doing a promo, MJF and Wardlow interrupting, and then Jericho hitting MJF with the line, "You're soft," which gets a big reaction. And Jericho's going to the commentator's booth. But we have the intro. Jericho goes to the commentator's booth, and then we have MJF and Wardlow against Sammy Guevara and Ortiz. Of course, MJF and Wardlow are going to win this. Taps out Ortiz. MJF does with his Salt of the Earth Fujiwara armbar. And a great, nice surprise was MJF just charging out, tackling Jericho, and fighting him. And they're having a match at Full Gear after all. Cool. We talk about some of the things that are going to happen tonight. Cody and the Gun Club are going to take on Dark Order number 10, Colt Cabana, and number 4, John Silver. That's our main event. Not much of a main event, but this is a go-home show. You're not supposed to give us a huge main event. Nyla against Red Velvet, presumably to build up her thing with Sheeta at Full Gear. We're going to hear from Pac. We're going to have a confrontation between Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston where they're not allowed to touch each other, but it promises to be pretty great. And we're going to have Miro against Trent. Tony interviews Kenny Omega. Pretty standard stuff here. And Trent comes to the ring for his match, and we go to commercial. When we come back, Miro comes to the ring. They have a lengthier match than I would have thought. In fact, they had to do a split screen during it. Then Miro finally wins. Chuck gets involved because Miro puts him in that camel clutch again. Kip hits Chuck. All kinds of shenanigans are happening. And then Orange comes out and dives on the pile of Miro and Kip. Yeah, interesting. JR talks to Adam Page. Great. Commercial. We got the Bucks and FTR at Full Gear. They promote that with a nice little vignette. Really good at the video vignettes. Again, they're just so good. They promote every single match that's going to happen at Full Gear. Make it all seem like a big deal. And where they're not technically a big deal, like Orange and John Silver, they have a couple times where they confront each other and little thing to make that more exciting. It's well done. Taz comes out with Ricky Starks and Brian Cage. Basically, we deserve a match at Full Gear, which all the commentators agree with, right? Like, yeah, these guys are super important. You know, the Ricky and Brian Cage only have 1 loss each with 10 wins or more. They deserve it. It's good. It's keeping everybody in the mind's eye. It's very smart. Third match, Private Party with Matt Hardy. Sammy Guevara attacks Matt because Matt attacked Sammy Guevara earlier under the guise of Serpentico. Again, see how they're making every match matter and having a thing, and everybody's got personal issues and conflicts. I'm sure somebody will find something to bitch about, but this was as good as a go-home show as you're gonna get in the modern era, I am convinced. Split screen. Then the Young Bucks come to the ring. The match lasts long enough that they have another split screen. The Young Bucks manage to win. FTR attacks. They go after that ankle in a big way, but Adam Page comes to save them, and then Kenny Omega brings up the rear to also save the Young Bucks, and then Adam Page and Omega have a little face-to-face thing. Cool. Commercial. Eddie Kingston, John Moxley promo. You're going to hear a lot about this, as well you should. It was fucking great. Go watch it. That's all I got to say. Really, really good. I recently took up for Eddie Kingston with Dr. Tom. I interviewed Larry Goodman, and I interviewed, and Todd Sexton interviewed Dr. Tom Pritchard on a Tracy Smothers tribute show that we did. You should go check that out, gwhnewsandnotes.blogspot.com, and find the podcast for Tipping Point. But I took up for Eddie Kingston because Dr. Tom was going really hard on the young guys, and I get that. Nobody feels realistic. Nobody feels this. Nobody feels that. And I took up for Eddie Kingston, and boy, do I look smarter than ever. The Eddie Kingston, John Moxley thing, fucking great. Fucking great. They have made hay. They have made something out of nothing over the course of 3 weeks to make this a pay-per-view worthy match when it had no right to be so. Kudos to Eddie Kingston and also to John Moxley, who I don't think is going to get enough credit for how he played this thing as well. The video thing about Pac was fucking phenomenal and bizarre and weird. I fucking loved it, especially on the heels of the Eddie Kingston, John Moxley thing. Again, it's not something, you're not going to see either one of those segments done that well and in that fashion and in that style on WWE. Really great. Commercial. Match number 4, Red Velvet against Nyla Rose. This is the squash match that Miro should have had all along. Boy, it is a squash done right. And then Nyla confronting Shida was cool. Vicky Guerrero cutting her promo at Shida to the point where Shida had to kind of go at her, and then Nyla hit Shida. Great. We got a rematch there. We got a big match there for Full Gear as well. The Omega Page match analysis from various people, Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone and Taz, just really cool. Getting the song Don't Know What You Got Till It's Gone and showing Omega and Page's tag team stuff and how they're not going to team again was really kind of sweet and poignant and kind of put a more of an emotional bent on this whole thing in a direct way. I liked it. So we get a reflection of what the Full Gear card is going to be. They run it down for us. See how great that is? Page and Omega, Moxley and Eddie, FTR and the Bucks, Shida and Rose, Matt Hardy against Sammy in an Elite Delete match, the one gimmick match. See, it's good stuff. Darby against Cody for the TNT title. Jericho against MJF. If MJF wins, he can be in the inner circle. Apparently, along with Wardlow, they established that this show. Orange Cassidy against John Silver, and then the buy-in match, Serena Deeb against Allison Kay. Cool shit all around. Next week, we're going to get the Natural Nightmares against Butcher and Blade, and there was one other match, but I did not write it down. My apologies. Darby Allin in a very weird black and white segment where he gets in a car marked Face of the Promotion with kind of his logos and kind of designs on it, and he runs over somebody wearing a Cody Rhodes mask. Fucking again, something you're not going to see in WWE. Fifth match, our main event. See how we got only 5 matches? We didn't give away too much. This is a go-home show. John Silver, number 10. Colt Cabana against Cody, Billy Gunn, and Austin Gunn. They have a split screen. They tell us about the countdown for Full Gear happening Friday at 11, which I'm also going to be reviewing and looking at. The match goes on. And then finally, the quick draw, the move I hate maybe the most, but he does it well. I'll give him that. Austin Gunn gets the pin, which is a bit of a shock, but this is really to set up this notion of, and Cody cuts the promo at Darby Allin, which comes across as a little heelish, which I think is the right move. And then we have a little altercation between John Silver and Orange Cassidy. Like I said, a phenomenal fucking go-home show. And I think the strange thing is, even though they didn't give up the farm on this show by any stretch, I bet you it gets better ratings than last week's show did. Hopefully AEW is learning that doing their thing and doing their best stuff and working towards a common goal, in this case it was to promote Full Gear, focused them and kept them really sharp throughout the show. And the vignettes were the real stars of the show, and the promos. Just really great shit. That Eddie Kingston, Jon Moxley promo segment is amongst the best things I've seen in a long time in wrestling. Anyway, this has been Platinum versus AEW Dynamite from Stephen Platinum, your friend in wrestling.